more consumers are becoming health conscious, shopping with care for nutritious, low-fat foods, and are following the U.S. Department of Agriculture's food guide pyramid, wisely purchasing more fresh fruits and vegetables and, ideally, organic, whole-grain foods. In spite of opposition from the meat and dairy industries, the government has at last taken the initiative to encourage consumers to eat less animal fat and protein for health reasons, especially in the war against various cancers, heart disease, strokes, and other debilitating and costly diseases. We should not forget either that animal produce can be contaminated with harmful bacteria that can cause outbreaks of potentially fatal food poisoning and also contain antibiotic and other drug and chemical residues. The next step is to shop with compassion and choose a humane diet that's good for you, and to eat with conscience, avoiding those animal products like milk, eggs, poultry, and meats that come from inhumane feedlots and factory farms, and instead purchase more humane products. When we enter these factory sheds, we quickly realize what intensive confinement means. Imagine what life must be like for a breeding sow, many of whom are kept for most of their lives in narrow gestation stalls, unable to walk or even turn around. When they are ready to give birth, they are confined in narrow crates with barely space to move or interact with their offspring. This farrowing crate design is much larger than most. Under natural conditions, sows build nests for their offspring and are free to interact with their piglets and satisfy their maternal instincts. On factory farms, most piglets are weaned early, and their mothers go back into gestation stalls to be re-inseminated while the piglets are kept in nursery pens for several weeks. Then they are usually put in large, crowded, concrete slat-floored pens where they are fattened for slaughter. Pneumonia and chronic foot and joint problems are common under these conditions and are written off as the costs of mass production. Sick or injured animals are rarely treated on an individual basis since it's not cost-effective. Cannibalistic tail biting is a frequent problem due in part to boredom and close confinement. Pigs thrive outdoors, and they too can play a significant role in sustainable agriculture. Sows are better mothers, and their piglets healthier when liberated from the factory farrowing crates. Laying hens who produce most supermarket eggs have a life no better than the factory sow. Crowded 4 to 5 birds per cage in dim light, stacked on top of each other in so-called battery cages, there's no escape from dominant cage mates, no room to spread their wings, no opportunity to dust bathe or preen or perch. They have no choice but to lay their eggs on a sloping wire floor on which they are forced to stand, unable to enjoy a secluded nest to lay their eggs. Foot sores and infections from living in these all-wire cages are all too common, and feather damage, combined with cannibalism and osteoporosis, thinning of the bones that fracture easily due to lack of exercise, are the laying hen's fate in these inhumane egg factories. In an effort to reduce cannibalism, hens have their sensitive beaks cauterized as chicks, a painful procedure that can result in chronic deformity, inflammation, and debility. When their egg-laying cycle is over, spent birds go into soups and pet foods, or are ground up into chicken feed. Or else they are starved for up to 12 days to shock them into a molting of feathers and a return to yet another cycle of egg production. Laying hens can be productive and profitable without having to be crammed into small cages. They should be provided with nest boxes in which to lay their eggs and sufficient space to allow for such natural behaviors as perching, preening, dust bathing, ground scratching, and food searching. They also do well in properly managed indoor-outdoor systems that fit well with the goals of organic and humane sustainable agriculture. Broiler chickens are raised for their meat in long sheds, becoming severely overcrowded by the time they are big enough to be slaughtered. They are bred and fed to grow so fast that they often have heart attacks and develop crippling joint problems. Ammonia levels in winter and heat and humidity in summer add to the stress and disease problems of these overcrowded birds. This means that they are especially prone to respiratory and intestinal infections, and these confinement sheds turn the birds into incubators for disease. Broiler chickens can be raised profitably and more humanely, given access to outdoor pens and more space. They can play an integral role in ecological farming. Many consumers know how milk-fed veal is produced, and they avoid eating such veal because these surplus dairy calves are deprived of a natural diet containing high-fiber forages, which they crave, and are given an iron-deficient liquid diet for 16 weeks. All this time they are kept in crates so narrow they have difficulty lying down and can't even turn around. They can never walk, run around and play, or see the light of day. Without antibiotics and other drugs, many of these calves would die from pneumonia and severe diarrhea that they are afflicted with. Veal calves can be raised more humanely in group pens. Likewise, cattle can be raised humanely in open pastures rather than in crowded feedlots, and contribute to the ecological management of sustainable farming and ranching enterprises. The inherent cruelties of intensive livestock and poultry factory farming systems are hidden from the public. One can drive past or fly over these animal factories, but rarely gain access. This is because agribusiness fears people might carry some disease in the buildings that could wipe out thousands of animals. However, they are also very reluctant to have any videos or photos shown to the public. They contend that urban consumers have a romantic idea that farm animals should be free roaming and don't understand that these systems are the most scientifically advanced and efficient ways of producing animal protein. But a full and fair cost accounting of these publicly subsidized farm animal factories that are owned or integrated by a handful of large multinational corporations would mandate their abolition. This is because, in actuality, these systems are highly inefficient, wasteful of natural resources, pollute the air and surface and ground waters, and cause animal stress, distress, and disease that costs some 17 billion a year. They also force smaller, more diversified and ecological family farms out of business, effectively destroying the social economy and culture of rural America while encouraging government to subsidize and promote an unhealthy diet too high in animal protein and saturated fats. Over 70% of America's best agricultural land is used to raise corn and soybeans for livestock and poultry, and some 5 to 6 pounds of corn and soybeans are squandered by agribusiness to produce 1 pound of meat. No nation can afford to squander natural resources and use good land to grow animal feed in the highly inefficient and wasteful pursuit of regarding meat as a dietary staple. Unless and until we change our dietary habits, more and more wildlife species will suffer and become extinct as their land is taken over to feed hundreds of millions of farm animals for human consumption. By adopting a plant rather than a meat-based diet, we will help conserve wildlife and biodiversity. Also, our health will improve and the nation's crippling health burden would be greatly relieved. Farm animals don't have to be raised under deplorable, intensive factory conditions where their natural behaviors are frustrated and denied. The best way to stop factory farming is not through legislation, but by appropriate and effective public reaction and action. What we choose to put on our plates and on the ends of our forks determines the fate of farm animals. By eating with conscience and using our political power of the plate, we can support those farmers and ranchers and food wholesalers and retailers who are part of a humane, environmentally friendly, and healthful food chain. When we turn the U.S. Department of Agriculture's food guide pyramid upside down and look at it from a more ecological and humane perspective, foods of plant origin that provide all the carbohydrates, proteins, oils, and essential fatty acids, as well as vitamins, trace minerals, and fiber that we need, should be our dietary staples. Foods of animal origin should not be regarded as dietary staples, and if we choose to eat any, then it should come from humane and ecologically sound farms and ranches. When we all eat with conscience, factory farms will cease to exist. Farm animals can be raised humanely, profitably, and in ecologically sound ways. So long as we continue to exploit them, we surely owe them a humane existence. Farm animals are not simply chattel, commodities, or consumable parts and products. They are sociable, intelligent, inquisitive, playful, trusting. They are caring and protective of their young. Surely, are we not as a nation civilized enough to guarantee farm animals humane treatment and a natural life? The sun must set on all factory farms.